Introducing health and wellness advocate, veteran international real estate investment expert, author and speaker, Adiel Gorel.
Health tips, fitness tips, nutrition and well-being, world-class experts, all right here on my podcast, The Adiel Gorel Show. This is really fascinating. Of course, I called you up before the television show and said, I'm going to need to explain to them what happened in about 15 seconds. So you and I talked about it, and here is what you told me to say, which is what I did. Of course, you know, I studied with you. So you basically said, when we went down and our eyes were looking up, we basically gave some new information to the brain.
Exactly.
You know, in this case, that eyes don't have to be stuck with the head all the time. They can move independently. The brain got that information and reorganized the movement. So boom, we could reach lower. So I want to really, communicate this to whoever is watching. Explaining why it works could sound complex. I don't want it to turn you off. The reality is simple movements can transform your life. It's just unbelievable what it can do. So that's really the takeaway. Soon I'm gonna make it hard for Anat and ask for maybe one more example that we could actually take and do on a daily basis. But I can tell you in my habit, Anat, I've taken it. I can even give you a simple thing that I do that, I have a rebounder at home. I know you do too. So, I rebound, and one of the movements on the rebound is a simple one, side to side. Simple, side to side. You just kind of side to side and side to side. But because I studied with you, I don't just, so I use my, I go side to side, but then my eyes look the other way, just to make the whole thing more complete. And I do it now almost daily in almost everything, everything. When I was working, with Carl Stau, I mean, may he rest in peace, of course. And you, in fact, made, that introduction, Anat. I was working with Carl Stau, and my interest in the Carl Stau work on breathing and, exhaling got rekindled when I talked to James Nestor. So, I went back and I was doing some of the stuff that he was doing, which is basically making sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, we are exhaling. So, he had you go like this from side to side to facilitate the movement of the diaphragm up and down. But almost mechanically, I do it a few times and then my eyes look, the other way. It became almost a habit. But I feel that it's a good thing to do on a daily basis. Anyway, that's just me. Please tell us, you talked before about the 9 essentials. In a simple way, can you tell us what they are?
Absolutely. And the thing is that all the 9 essentials help the brain differentiate, help the brain to perceive differences, notice stuff, get new information, and work with it. So the first essential is movement with attention to the feeling of self. So if you think of rote exercise, like just, you're out of that, but if you just do the same thing over and over, and maybe even watch TV while you do it, it has value, for the exercise side of it, it definitely has value, but it does not put you on a major process of development. And there's research that shows that they can't detect the new added connections as a result. That means there's no learning, there's no evolution. When we move and we pay attention to what it feels to us, we don't have to understand anything. We just pay attention to the feeling of the self as we move. The brain, there's a different research studies, 1.8 million new connections per second. Per second, Adi, you're the engineer. Multiplied by 60, and then multiplied again by 60. And we're getting to 1 billion new connections very, very quickly. So, and that, by the way, we can talk a little bit more later, that is the vitality, that is the youthfulness, because that's what healthy children's brain do spontaneously. And once we get into the habit, we tend to go rote, habitual, automatic, and that's the beginning of the deterioration. So that's number one, movement with attention to the feeling of self. You can then go and run and daydream. You don't have to do it all the time. 2 minutes of that, 1 minute of that on the treadmill potentiates the brain in remarkable ways for at least 15, 20, 30 minutes. And over time, if you do it again and again, you just get a more highly potentiated nervous system. So that's number one. Number two is slow. Fast, neurologically, you can only do what you already know. This is what we call grooved in. So the moment I do something fast, if I want to or not, I'll do it the way I've already been doing it. So when we want to get vitality, we want to get out of pain, we want to learn a new skill, slowing down is exceptionally important. Once you master it, you speed it up and you automate it. But learning requires slowing down. But of course, when we slow down, we can notice, which is the first layer. We can have time to feel what's going on. We develop our ability to sense what's going on, which is the fire, what feeds the whole thing. It's the source, it's our feeling, sensation selves, is where thought comes from, everything. So that's the second one. The third one is reduction of effort. When we reduce effort, we increase our sensitivity. Hey, here we are again. We feel what's going on. The brain notices differences, and it's called in neuroscience, it's called signal to noise ratio. You want to get a ratio between the background and the foreground, big enough that the brain perceives a difference. But you can make the like one sound and another sound louder, or you can sensitize your system so it can perceive finer and finer differences.
You know, to the casual viewer or listener, this sounds like Tai Chi, attention and pay attention. So maybe it has this kind of thing in common, you know, with that.
Oh, absolutely. The principles are not attached only to my work. They are attached to how the brain works. One of the most exciting things that but then you can become intentional. It doesn't have to be Tai Chi. We're working in schools. We take to the children that have issues and the aides and the teachers, and we train them how to slow down, how to reduce the intensity, emotional and otherwise. And then the next to the essential is variations. People want to do the right thing. They want to get the outcome. You know, we teach ourselves and adults and children, do this and hold the violin correctly and do that and put your toes this way. And whatever comes out of it, comes out of it. And very few people become very good because they somehow landed on the right path. But we take people that couldn't do something. I've worked with a black belt in judo, you know, that was practicing and practicing and practicing and trying to get to the next level. Actually, I worked with somebody who went all the way to 10th dan in judo and ninjutsu, Doron, and he was stuck, and he did it in Japan. And I took him out of, again, trying to do it and again, trying to do it. And I just opened the variations and took him away from because he was so grooved in his failures. He was an expert in his failures. Variation is so powerful. And
that's a very key thing, because you are right. The moment you are an adult, especially, and an older adult, especially more, you're grooved in. We move in a certain way. I could look at a friend from hundreds of yards away and I'll recognize them just because of how they pick up a can from the shelf, because they move a certain way. And even when we moved before, you told me, okay, now move your arm and your back moves a little bit more like an arch. That was a variation on what I would do normally in my groove. So the minute we leave the groove, we open up new connections in the brain. All of that stuff affects us in a daily way, be more mobile.
More mobile, more alive, more free, and healthier. It impacts the immune system. We are one system, and the brain is the most central. I mean, we need the heart, we need every part, but anyway, so variation. And this is something you can do intentionally. My father, he was, there was an invention and they built a plant and something went really wrong, and he tried to figure out what was happening in the process. And it was after I published my first book with the essentials, and he called me up and he said, Anat, I sat there for 2 hours and I could not come up with any solutions. And he just read my book and said, I decided to do your variation essential. And on purpose, I put into the computer equations and solutions I knew were not going to work. So he just gave, he said, and in 10 minutes, I found the solution.
The variation shed another light on it and he could see it in a different way. So what's the next one? What's the next essential?
Well, the next one is enthusiasm. So enthusiasm, what I'm talking about is not hoo-ha, rah, bravo, good, you're so good, you're amazing, all that kind of stuff, even though that can be nice sometimes too. The thing is the developing an internal skill of amplifying and a sense of appreciation to what maybe people will consider a small change or a small accomplishment. Because if we think of the brain as a quantum system, there is no small change and big change. There is either a change or no change. And I do not quantify or qualify the change. Oh, that's a good change. That's a bad. It's just like food. We eat a lot more than we take in, digest, but we need the whole volume of food to be able to extract from it what we need. So the brain, makes lots of new connections and then integrates, extracts what it needs. And the ability to go to notice and amplify, and that I learned by working with the children and the parents. I noticed that parents that were able to see so-called small changes in the child, like, oh, they never really turned their head much to the left, and now it's turning a little to the left, and internally felt happy.
Okay, so that the enthusiasm for recognizing that small changes are happening and not dismissing them, that kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah, and amplifying it, because then because the brain listens to the emotions, and both of positive and negative danger emotions. So if it goes like, great, that was great, I notice you amplify it, it becomes more available to be used and integrated into what we do in the future.
All right.
And
What's
so
the next
many
one?
concepts, and it's a generosity of spirit towards oneself and others, and it's actually a very, very sophisticated approach to oneself and one's well-being. So then I think, anyway, the next one is flexible goals. If we knew how to reach our goal, we would have reached it already. And one of the big mistakes is to go for a goal as if you're supposed to be there. We have no idea how we're going to get there. All the great inventions, all the great insights, all the great breakthroughs in human evolution, people might have looked for a solution, but how they got to it, they didn't have a clue. Sometimes it comes in a dream, sometimes it comes when you go to a movie and you hear something and all of a sudden your brain does an association. It can come in any way. So what we want to do is to allow, and of course the variations do it, keep like an open, full-field receptivity while we have the intention to figure it out or to build it or to solve it or to whatever. Very, very powerful and a much nicer way to live life, because it takes away a lot of the suffering and a lot of failures, because we consider it failure when we didn't arrive to the goal. And is built very strongly, unfortunately, very often from a very early age. One of the things that now we're working with a few hundred children in school is that they're terrified of failure. They have an idea of something they're supposed to accomplish. And one of the first things we teach them is the success of doing failure on purpose. So the success is to fail. I just flip it over. Nice variation, right? And they get so delighted, and then they get more intelligent, and then they breathe better, and then they're happier, and then they're safer, and and we can do it for ourselves as adults. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
What's the next essential?
I hope I'm not forgetting anything, but it's imagination and dreams. Imagination is extremely powerful. It's something that the brain produces spontaneously in healthy children from, from a certain age on, and it is very much a part of the structuring of the brain. And as we get older, we tend to get grooved in, and we tend to have, and life can be challenging, and we work hard, and we get tired, and we are habituated to watch TV or get online or do lots of cat videos, on Facebook or whatever. All of it good, but to retrain imagination. So one of the ways to train imagination, and if we're coming back to movement, and you are very familiar with that from having worked with, with me and the other teachers, is that you can do a movement on one side. So you do whatever, and then you imagine doing it on the other side. Or you do a movement in your exercise routine, and then you take a break from the actual execution. And you sit there for 1, 2, 3 minutes, and you visualize yourself doing the movement. And then you visualize it being easy. You visualize it being smooth. You visualize it small. You visualize it big. And then you go back to doing it. I guarantee you, you would find enormous progress.
This ties to something that we all know. You have those Olympic athletes, and before the competition, or the gymnasts, you see them and they tell you, I'm sitting here and I'm going through every motion, I'm visualizing it. So we know that from that domain, but I have to add something. You have worked on me. You have given me lessons. And I remember the very first time that you only worked on one side, I felt frustrated because in my groove of thinking, wait, she did one side, now she should do the left. The other. You left me, you only worked on one side. And without me imagining and going through them all, it just
equalized itself.
There was some osmosis. In other words, the brain must have learned from what happened on the right side. Oh, that looks pretty good. And it started, a few hours later or the day later, the left, the other side. So, I think that's very powerful.
It's actually one of the most potent ways to upgrade the working of the brain. The brain can work on a lower quality and higher quality. You can potentiate it, or you can call it the energy levels, or whatever people want to call it. And the imagination, and if you do it asymmetrical, it creates real easy to perceive. We did it in the little demonstration we just did earlier. The difference between one side to the other. You train your ability to perceive differences. You get the brain to get interested in it, and then you get the brain to move it from side to side. It connects. And one of the ways, and I probably have done it with you at least once over the years, where I work on one side, you feel the difference, and then I do 1 or 2 movements, and I have you imagine it being the same way. And it might take 20 minutes to create a certain change working on one side. And then it takes between 30 seconds to 60 seconds, and you get the whole thing on the other side. And the more you do it, you get a more potent brain. We know potent brains. Einstein had an amazingly potent brain, right? We know people around us. Some people have a more sluggish brain, a less trained brain to think and imagination. So that's imagination. And then you can also imagine stuff in your life, stuff in your future, stuff, like that. But this really, it's a skill. Every one of the essentials is a skill. Enthusiasm is a skill. Amplification of, and so on. This is a skill. And then dreams is also a skill, but not dreams like go to sleep at night and dream, which is fine. But we need to have a dream. I say the dream organizes us from the future. It pulls us, it calls upon us from the future. So we have 24 hours a day. We're awake maybe 14 of those or 15 or however long. And what do we do with our time? What's the quality with which we act? And where do we put our attention? And dreams are a wonderful thing. So when people fulfill their dream, it's very important to get a new dream.
Yeah.
And for people, as people age, as we all age, people tend to feel like there's no room for dreams anymore. Because children have dreams, they have ambitions, young people, they see on TV, they also want to be wealthy or this or whatever. But as we age, it can really feel like, okay, that's too late, or I've done it, or
so
I don't know.
Here I gotta say something about your life specifically. I'm taking the liberty. One of the people who took your training with me is your father, who is now, correct me if I'm wrong.
He just turned 102 last week.
102. Okay, but that is impressive in and of itself.
Yes.
Your father was there in the training. I actually was associated with your father on certain projects, but the real amazing thing is, of course, your father is an accomplished chemist, a scientist, but when he was, get this, 93, he developed a technology that spawned a startup. And I was looking, there was an article in the paper. He said, a startup entrepreneur at the age of 93. So you talk about dreams, Some people you talk to, they're 60. I talk to some of my investors, they're 60, 55. I'm too old. Really? The guy started a company at 93.
Yeah, that just this issue, the 30th, it's one of the 100 big inventions, Time magazine, and there was a few weeks ago a full article about it in Newsweek, and the London Times just had a whole feature on it on the weekend, I think, on his birthday. It was on his birthday. So yeah, and he was sort of my model. Of, people say they're old when they're 70 or 60 and I kind of I couldn't make sense of it. I grew up with this guy, but you are also a model for it. Look at Adi, just doing this podcast. 10 years ago, you were always interested in personal growth, both for yourself and in general. You've always been passionate about it. That's what brought you to my work. However, you have your dream, you have your passion, and you follow your passion. So I just finished a very wonderful crowning beauty of the whole essentials is awareness. Awareness, is a skill. So like any other skill, people talk about awareness as a state of mind, or it's endowed from the outside and all this stuff. From my point of view, it's a skill, just like movement is a skill, thinking is a skill, and all the essentials are skills. And the awareness skill, very young children do have awareness, not associated to language, but they're highly aware. And I've worked with so many of them, from age 5 days old on. But as a skill, you can develop it. I say that awareness is the glue of learning. That means that when you do one side, you feel how it is. you feel the other side, you become aware of it, you imagine it here, you feel and you become aware of how you feel. You can, and then, you know, it dissipates, you run around, whatever. And then you go like, oh, yesterday, it was really great. And you can just get yourself back into the memory of what you were aware of. And the whole thing comes back. You don't need another session of half an hour. And awareness, you look at people like, you know, the really good martial artists, they can feel what's happening behind them. They're aware. They develop that capacity, and, you know, in movies and Bruce Lee and all that stuff, you know, it looks amazing, and we all kind of, so awareness and the lack of awareness and the lack of self-awareness is painful to be in and to be with when you deal with adults.
So Anat, so far, we covered 8 of the essential. What is the 9th?
I have to remember. Oh, the learning switch. I know, no, the learning switch. The brain is either in a learning mode or not. You're really tired, that you're not available to learn. But you can, all those essentials tend to wake up the learning switch. So it's self-observation. So if you want to do something or figure something out, and you know that you're running a fever, or you're really tired or really hungry, take care of that first and then come to learn. If you're teaching other people, notice where they're at. We work really hard on that with the parents and the teachers in the schools and so on. Because people, I just coached a few people about that this morning. People confuse teaching with learning. When we teach somebody, or we try to get somebody to get something, can be also in relationships, we think that by us doing the action of teaching, they are learning. These are 2 independent processes. So we need to, first of all, see that the person is in a state where they can learn. And I'll tell a very brief story very quickly that I heard from one of my teachers this morning. And if they are not in that mode, either try to use the essentials to bring them to that mode, or yourself, or don't try to do it now, because all they will learn is the agitation and the failure, and the brain learns its experience. So if it fails a lot, you become an expert at failure. If it's, you know, we learn our experience. So this kid, and the mother is trying to teach him how to read. It's just happened this week. We're now working through Zoom, and the kid is not listening, and he's getting agitated, and the mother gets tense. So the practitioner said, ask the mother, please pick the paper and turn it upside down. It's a variation, right? And he said to the kid, can you recognize any word upside down? And vavoom, the learning switch came on. And he got so excited. It was like because it's all wrong. It's upside down. It's all this stuff, you know, and it's interesting. It's not the same broad thing. The brain needs newness, needs variability. So that is the learning switch.
We had the same
adults, by the way, a brain that has a learning switch that's really available, it's a young brain, it's a healthier brain, and everything, all the systems in the body work better.
We had a similar story from Patrick McEwen, who wrote the book, you know, The Oxygen Advantage. And he talks about the importance of, and again, it's, you know, the Carl Starr work. You exhale and you don't inhale right away. You let the CO2 build up, and that's what's going to cause your next breath. So he said when he works with children, it's the easiest thing to do. He said, okay, let's gently, without hold our breath. Immediately it's a game. Immediately they love it. Yeah. But the thing is, the sneakiest thing that I find
working with adults, working with people, but to themselves, and also when we look to influence others, is that people sneak and try to fix and get to the goal. So one of my basic premises, I didn't put it as an essential, is from fixing to connecting. We stop trying to fix. We don't try to lengthen muscles. We don't try to make you stand correctly. We don't try to give you the right answers to the math problem. Because of some background that I have in math, I work very easy for me to work with children that have issues with the math. I don't teach them the math. I mean, we are in a context. Maybe it's algebra, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But right away, you know, I start taking it places. It doesn't have to be right. And my colleague, Anat, they did it with the PhD students in Jerusalem University, in the Hebrew University, who are in the math, computer sciences area. And they're the bright ones that know math, and they train them to look where somebody got the wrong mistake, what was their thinking, and play with that and try to do it. And all of them, including the best ones, got better in no time.
Yeah.
And they included movement in it.
So, you know, once again, from personal experience, from being a teacher of your method myself, because you trained teachers and you trained me, I can tell all our viewers, this is serious, but yet super simple. Yes, you know, Anat explained a lot of stuff and maybe your eyes glazed over, you know, a couple of times, but that's not the point. The point is, with simple movements, we can make ourselves better. So, you know, Anat, you have a book, first of all, and the book is called Move into Life, right? Move into Life, NeuroMovement for Lifelong Vitality. Also though, however, I used to, back in the old days, before CDs even, we only had, you know, cassettes. I used to have a set of cassette tapes of movement lessons that you gave. Basically, I didn't need to do anything except listen and follow. You said, lay on your back, do this, do that. Those were very transformative. In fact, I started having some friends coming to visit me only so we can listen to those cassette tapes. Of course, now we have them as MP3s and CDs. How can people reach some of these very simple, life-changing examples and have them?
Okay, so first of all, they need to go to the website, and everything's also streaming now. So some of it is still, you can get the DVDs or CDs. But you go to my website, anatbanielmethod.com. There are many programs. For somebody who starts, there are two options. If people have pain, I recommend to start with the healthy backs. It's pain, it was built specifically, all of them can help with pain, but this is built for that purpose. So healthy backs, NeuroMovement, healthy backs, healthy necks, and healthy backs, scoliosis, and pain relief. And they're good for anyone, but if there's pain, I suggest to any kind of pain, I suggest with that. And the first one, healthy backs. It's really, really important to start with that one. The other program that I have is a NeuroMovement whole body brain fitness. And that is comprised of 4 different programs within it. Each program, by the way, is 6 lessons. The lessons are around 30, 35 minutes. And the one is the whole body fitness. It's the first one to start with. And then there's one on breathing, on sitting, what I call dynamic sitting, and on balance. So, and it's very rich and very, very impactful. I just came out with a program that, I don't know if I sent you the link or not, but if I didn't, I will send you the link, Adi, is NeuroMovement Breathing for Life.
I'm not sure. If you can send it, I would love that. I really would.
Of course.
And of course, you see, again, we talked to James Nestor, to Patrick McEwen, we talked about humming, and now breathing for. So through the NeuroMovement work, we also can have our body move in such a way that our breathing is better.
And we impact the brain. The slow breath, the long exhalation, the taking time before you inhale, all that is in movement lessons that I've been teaching for years. Except the way Nestor, I haven't finished yet the other, but Nestor is amazing. It's fantastic. And I was so excited because this is it. It's also the essentials. I mean, I was like, oh my God, somebody's speaking my language. And beautiful book, magnificent book. And, but I call it the players and then the direct breathing. So I get a lot of the mobility, what you described that Stow tried to get people to do. And, he used to squish the chest and so on. It was very effective. And, and so I make sure that people map the parts of their bodies in more detail. So it's available to move better in the breath itself. And then I do lessons that directly activate the whole oxygen CO2 balance and so 10 of those lessons. I was also influenced by the COVID situation, and I had a couple of trainees of mine are doctors in the ER, and they asked me, can I record lessons for these people to do in bed? So I made them, most of them short, 20 minutes, so people who are sick can get through it, and they do as much as they can. And we've given it for free for all frontline workers.
That is fantastic. Well, Anat, I know that it's easy to speak for 10 hours, for 15 hours. I want to thank you for your generosity. I want to thank you for your helpfulness. I think that people might want to check out those resources, because if you just do a couple of super simple movements, those things are transformative. Yes. So Anat, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Adi. Absolutely a pleasure. And really, and I'm looking forward to this coming out with all the rest of the series. It's going to be a thrilling podcast, and I will make sure all my people know about it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Anat. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today for the second part of our amazing interview. If you didn't catch part 1, don't miss out. The link is in the description below for you. And be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.